Toxic relationships are based upon on a needs basis. You know what I mean? What you need from the person. It's not about, you know what I'm saying? It's not about what you can give to the person. It's about what you need from the person and how that person is going to supply you with the needs that you have. All right? And if the person can't give you what you need, then you are going to manipulate them, you are going to shame them, you are going to break them down until they give you what you need. And when you feel like the person is no longer meeting your needs, then they become disposable. They become disposable, right? And that's to sum up much of our relationships in the Islamic community. That's pretty much our relationships. I come into the marriage with all of these needs and requests, and I'm going to squeeze you as much as I can and manipulate you as much as I can until you meet all of my needs. And then when you can no longer satisfy my needs, you can no longer meet my needs, then I'm going to discard you and I'm going to go and find somebody else. That's marriage in the Islamic community, at least amongst African Americans, as far as I know. That's how marriage works. That's how marriage works. So it's toxic. All right. So toxic relationships are based on needs, be it emotional, be it financial, or sexual. In these relationships, each partner's central role is either a parasite or a victim. That's how you know that you're in a toxic relationship. You are either a parasite sucking the life out of the other person, or you're a victim, the one that is being sucked dry in that situation. That is the toxic relationship. Your central role is to either be a parasite or a victim. The degree of sick behavior by either partner can vary. One of them might be sicker than the other, and both of them may abuse one another. There's abuse. There's abuse on both ends of a toxic relationship, right? There's abuse on both ends. You need her, she needs you. They may abuse in different ways. Their abuse might be blatant or indiscernible, like small, subtle. The abuse, it could be passive aggressive or it could be aggressive. All right? It might be unintentional or subconscious or both. It might be unintentional. Maybe, you go in with these needs and you're unintentionally abusing this person, not realizing that the needs that you have, your spouse, I don't give a damn how great your spouse is, they will never be able to supply you with what you need. Your needs are far beyond what any human being can give. If you look at the profile of some of the men that some of you women are looking for, that man doesn't exist. He's a ghost. Same thing with the brothers, right? The brothers, you say, well, what's your ideal spouse? And she got to be like this, 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 this. And it's like that woman doesn't even exist. That person is a ghost. They don't even exist. So what do? You go in a marriage with a person, right, that doesn't even meet half of the standards that you set. And then you marry the person, and then you're going to mold them and shape them and squeeze them and manipulate them and passive aggressively abuse them until you can get them to give you what you feel you need. And the fact of the matter is that some of us are so sick. You could be married to Superman or Superwoman, and you would still never be satisfied. You could be married to Superman or Superwoman, and you would still never be satisfied because the needs that you have are clinical. They're not even physical, sexual, emotional, financial. You have clinical needs. What you need is a psychiatrist. That's what you need. So what you need to do is enroll yourself in the university, become a psychiatrist, and fall in love with yourself. And spare everybody else your toxicity. Spare everybody else your toxicity. Fall in love with yourself and treat your own, diagnose your own self because you're sick. As the scholars, they have a saying, كل امرئ كل إنسان طبيب نفسي. Every individual is his own doctor. You know what you need. You know what your sicknesses are, your illnesses are, and you know what the cure for that is. You know what I mean? Like you going into relationships with people with all of these clinical mental health issues. These issues, you talking about you want somebody to love you, all right? But you don't even have a concept of love. So even when you're in a relationship with someone that is trying to love you, you don't even recognize what they're offering as love because you have no concept of love to begin with. But yet you want to go in a relationship and you want love. Oh, he's not loving me the way I want to be loved. Or she's not loving me the way I want to be loved. They're not showing me attention. It's like, but you have middle child syndrome. Nobody can satisfy the attention deficit that you have. Nobody can satisfy that. That's a fact. Nobody can satisfy that. You are a middle child. Your issues are clinical. You know what I mean? Like, whatever the method of delivery, it is equally damaging to the recipient. The sinister aspect of imperceptible abuse is that it is difficult to identify and explain. Usually, when a person is a victim in a toxic relationship, you know what I mean? Like it's a matter of the way that they are perceiving it. So they don't know how to explain to someone on the outside that they are actually being abused. They don't know how to explain it. It's like this person is toxic. They're abusing me in this relationship, but it's hard to try to explain to somebody else because the abuse is so subtle. Not saying everybody who's a middle child, not everybody who's a middle child, but there are some middle child syndrome is real. And there are some kids that are middle children who suffer from an attention deficit. No matter how much attention the parent shows them, it's never enough. And then they take that and they go into adulthood with that and they marry someone with that same attention deficit. And it doesn't matter how much attention your spouse shows you, it's never enough. Not everybody. There are some exceptions to the rule. All right, so the sinister aspect. So what should I do about my middle child? The first thing that you can do is explain to them what middle child syndrome is so they become aware. Self-diagnosis. We have to learn how to self-diagnose our illnesses. That's, as the scholars, they have a saying, ma'rifatu illa nisf al-ilaj. Ma'rifatu al-illa nisf al-ilaj. Like understanding your disease is half of your cure. Understanding your disease is half of your cure. So the first thing that you have to do is explain why they feel like they're never getting enough attention so that they can actually now start to process that. They can actually start making sense. Oh, okay, I get it. And stop holding the parents accountable, right? And that's the same thing that they do in relationships. You go into a marriage, you're constantly shaming and blaming your spouse because of what you feel you're not receiving in the marriage. Meanwhile, the other spouse is bending over backwards to make sure that they are giving you what they can, but it's never enough. And because you don't self-diagnose, you don't do any introspection. So you never sit back and say, well, my spouse actually does really try. Maybe it's not my spouse. Maybe it is, the density of my needs. Maybe it's just too dense. Maybe it's just too deep. It's too deep of a hole for any one human being to fulfill. So I need to go and start doing some self-reconstruction. I need to start reconstructing myself around understanding my illnesses. You follow me? So let's continue. So now that you have a general idea of what a toxic love relationship is. So we discussed in the first part of this 5 ways to distinguish healthy love. Um, 5 ways to distinguish healthy love from toxic love. Number one, healthy love has to deal with security. When you're in a healthy love relationship, each partner is secure within themselves. And so they encourage one another to expand beyond the 4 walls of their marital construct, of their relationship, whether that is financially, entrepreneurially, whether that is socially, professionally. They encourage each other to go far beyond just the constraints of their marriage. You know what I mean? Because they're each secure within themselves in that marriage. All right. So there's security. All right. Each person is secure in understanding their own worth as an individual within that marital construct. Um, on the flip side of that, the unhealthy love or the toxic love is fear. It's fear. All right. How do you know that you're in a toxic love relationship? There's fear there. All right. All right. Preoccupation with the other person's behavior, fear that the other person is changing. All right. You're afraid that perhaps this person is going to leave me. Perhaps this person is, going to get better and going to move themselves to a different place and outgrow me. Right. Right. That's a toxic fear. You're so preoccupied with where they're going and who they're with because the fear is always, I'm going to lose you. That's a toxic love relationship. Number two, the healthy relationship has to deal with compromise. A healthy relationship is about compromise and negotiating, taking turns, leading the relationship, problem solving issues that arise in the marriage together. They don't mind, the man doesn't mind sharing his light, sharing his patriarchy with his wife. He doesn't mind sharing that. It's not a toxic patriarchy. He doesn't mind sharing his space, this plateau, you know, this place that God has given him in the relationship as the patriarch. He doesn't mind sharing that with his spouse. He doesn't mind negotiating with his spouse because here again, the marriage is based upon security. There's security there. All right. So there's no fear. All right. So there's negotiating. He or she doesn't mind negotiating, doesn't mind compromising, right? Because for them, compromise is not about a loss. It's about getting to the goal. All right. But to someone who is toxic, it's about power. The flip side of that is power. They always want to be in a powerful position. And it doesn't matter if that powerful position is attained by manipulation, is attained by, passive aggressive behavior, or even passive behavior. Passive behavior, right? I had a conversation with a brother last night who tried to take a very passive approach to manipulate me into believing that, you know, what I said in my last post dealing with the mistress was somehow wrong. Like you're not gonna manipulate me. People who are confident in their positions, you can't manipulate them. I don't care how passive you are. Well, brother, you started off very arrogant. Okay, I'm a little cocky at times. You know what I mean? Like I'm sorry for that. I can be a little cocky at times. I don't doubt that. That's part of my character flaw. That's something that you guys gotta deal with. That comes with the. I'm not perfect. I'm not a prophet or a messenger. You know what I mean? Like I'm a human being. Like part of my flaw is that sometimes I could be a little cocky. Yes. Look at where I come from. You know what I'm saying? Like people who come from where I come from don't arrive at where I am. Like it's not too many people who have come from where I've come from and have arrived at this place. You understand? So yeah, it might have came off a little arrogant. Oh, you started with your credentials and you sounded a little arrogant, like you was playing God and all this. Like, okay, I get it. But does that subtract from the truth of what I was saying? Don't use that to deflect. What you're doing is you're deflecting. I'm all familiar with the deflecting mechanisms and apparatuses that we create because we don't want to just fully accept what the person is saying. But you're not going to shame me into walking away with my head down. You're like, that's not going to work with me because I stand on what I said. I don't budge on that. I'm stand on what I said. If you want to get me to humble myself, then attack what I said. You understand? Don't attack me as an individual because I will give you that all day long. Oh, you were arrogant. You came off arrogant. I'll apologize for that all day long. What I don't apologize is for the truth that I conveyed. That I make no apologies for. I will go to my grave with that. I will stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that, and I'm okay with that. Once a person can stand in front of Allah with something, you will never be able to make them budge on that. Nothing you can say to me that will make me say, all right, well, maybe I do need to reconsider. Oh, you came off arrogant. I'll apologize for that all day long. I admit sometimes, I don't always get it right. You know what I mean? Like I was traumatized. I grew up as a foster kid. You know what I mean? Suspended from school, kicked out of school. You know what I mean? I went to alternative schools. You understand what I'm saying? Fighting all the time. Street dude. You know what I'm saying? Like I have a history. I have a past. Don't let the beard and the articulation fool you. And it's very rare that people who come from where I come from even arrive at the age that I'm at with their sanity. Go and do the statistics on children who come out of foster homes. Go do the statistics of that. And I'm not even talking about the time that I spent in the streets. I'm not even talking about gunfights and shootouts. I'm not even talking about any of that. I'm talking about just my childhood and where I came from. You understand? But, that's personal. That's me as an individual personally. And I'll apologize for that all day long. I don't always get it right. I don't always get it right. But at the same token, don't use that to to dismiss what I'm saying. Yes, sometimes I come off a little cocky. I mean, point it out to me and I'll correct it. As I told the brother over the phone, point it out to me and I'll correct it. I don't have a problem. That's not my struggle. Pointing something out to me that I did that was wrong to make me correct that has never been my struggle. I'll tell on myself, right? Before I let somebody dangle something over my head. I'm not that person. I'm not that person. But what you're not going to do is take this passive approach to try to manipulate me to get me to, that's not going to work with me. Sorry. That's not going to work with me. Oh, you need to fear Allah. Yeah, you're right. I do. I need to fear Allah and I need to tone it down a little bit. I'm going to give you that all day long. But we're not going to touch, the meat and potatoes of everything that came out of that lecture, and I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more because something emerged or something was passed on to me yesterday about an article that was written which was just full of lies. SubhanAllah, I just really can't understand for the life of me why people have to go so hard. Like you don't need to exaggerate to get your point across. All you can simply say is, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. But to exaggerate to the point where it becomes a lie, that is something that is intolerable for me. That is something that is intolerable. You know what I mean? And inshallah, we'll talk about that a little later. So, 5 ways to distinguish healthy love from toxic love. Number 1, security. Healthy love is security. The toxicity or the toxic part of that is fear. Number 2, compromise, right? Compromise and negotiation, all right? Person who is in a healthy love relationship, there's compromise, there's negotiating, right? And on the flip side of that is power. Toxic love is about power, right? Toxic love is about power and control and blaming and shaming and manipulation. That is toxic love. So if you're in a relationship and people are doing that, then know that you are in a toxic relationship. where there's no compromise, everything is a power play, all right? Everything is a play for power, right? Then you know that you are in a toxic relationship. Number three, healthy love is about embracing each other's individuality. Healthy love is about embracing each other's individuality, right? You accept the person for who they are. That doesn't mean that, you don't try to correct the person in areas where they need to be corrected for their own good, all right? But that doesn't mean that we totally, dismiss the person's individuality. We don't do that. If you married the person, then that's who you married. That's who you married. I mean, you should embrace everything about them. You don't have to like everything about them. You don't have to like everything about your spouse. There's certain things that I'm sure my spouses hate about me, but they've embraced me as an individual. And likewise, I've done the same. I don't like every single thing about them. There's certain things about them that get on my nerves. Certain things about them that, yes, bother me, that irks me. Yes. Does that mean that I dislike them as an individual? No. It just means that when that particular quality rears its ugly head, it irks the hell out of me. But that's just who they are, because the quiet is kept. Some of the things that irk us about our spouses are the same things that we miss about them when they're not around. It's like, oh man, this person is so irksome. But, when they're not here, those are the things that you really miss about them. Those are the things that kind of, bring you joy when you think about them, no matter how irksome it is. You know what I mean? I get to Starbucks and, and I start ordering my drink. My wife is looking at me like, damn, you got this poor girl behind the counter with all these daggone ingredients that you want in your coffee, man. Like, it's crazy. And, I get it, but that's just me. That's just me. Does that mean that she dislikes everything about? No, it's just some qualities they say about married people. Only married people who've been married long enough understand this metaphor. Sometimes I want to throw you out the window and then catch you before you hit the bottom. That's how you feel sometimes in marriage. Sometimes I want to throw you out the front window, right? And then run down to the bottom of the house and catch you before you fall, right? And that's just what it is. But you embrace the person's individuality. You don't erase that from them. You don't try to make them become this individual that you've created in your mind, this ideal person you created in your mind, and you want to shape them, mold them, manipulate them until you can get them to be who you want them to be. As I said last week, then that's a narcissist. That's a malignant narcissist. You are in love with yourself. I don't know why the hell did you marry me? You are trying to make me like you. You should have just stayed by yourself. Why are you going to bring a person into your marriage? Why are you going to bring a person into your marriage and then force them to be like you when you could have just stayed single and been by yourself and then be in love with yourself? But you're going to marry somebody and force them to be exactly like you? Are you that much in love with yourself? That's a malignant narcissist. And then there's a sociopathic, component in there because you have zero concern for the other person's individuality. You could care less about who they aspire to be because you are so busy trying to get them to be who you want them to be. And then when they fail, obviously they're going to fail because no one can be you. Only you can be you. So obviously your spouse is going to fail miserably at being exactly who. And there's some people who get married and they synchronize. You can hear the spouse, like when she talks, you can hear her husband in her voice. You know what I mean? When he talks, you can hear the wife in their voice. When people have been married long enough, they kind of synchronize in pretty much everything. Physically, they even start looking alike. All right? That's natural. But you got to allow that to happen on its own. Not that you're going to force the person to be more like you. So when she's in a conversation and she responds a certain way, oh, honey, you shouldn't have responded. Like, I would have said this, but I'm not you. How do you want me to respond the way